sure? All right, let's go.
Hey there, this is Coach Truess, and welcome to Prudes Need Not Apply podcast. This is actually my jump off video for YouTube, and I'm just happy that you could join me today. This is a podcast that if you're not familiar with Proofs Need Not Apply, we actually started in 2018. So I do have episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, and places like that. But I decided why not jump on YouTube and do the podcast there as well. So thank you for being a part of my journey on getting started on YouTube. So Proofs Need Not Apply. This episode, I'm going to give you a little background on who we are, what we initially started as, and where we have evolved to now, as well as some upcoming topics we'll be discussing. But primarily, this episode is about pausing, breathing, and strategizing during a time where a lot of people are feeling a lot of anxiety about where we are today as a country in the United States of America. So it's easy to go online and find many, many, many videos and reels and, stories that could bring the anxiety that, by the way, is justified. It's not unreasonable to feel how we feel right now, the anger, the frustration, the fear, um, the determination, our resolve to keep our democracy intact as we actually watch it disintegrate in front of our very eyes. But this video is not about the discourse of what are we going to do as a collective. This video is about what are you going to do for yourself during this time. Okay, so a little background about the show. Prudes Need Not Apply initially was a show about more intimate conversations surrounding adult themes like sex and intimacy and how we communicate. The show has always been about communication, but it evolved from just talking about intimate conversations about sex and intimacy, and it's not really a relationship show, it's communication, to talking about how we create environments where we can actually have healthy dialogue and talk about anything, not for the sake of just responding to someone else's perspective, but to understand someone else's perspective and share our own. I see a lot of podcasts where they get on to debate. And some people's form of debate is basically, I'm going to hear you long enough to jump in and tell you why I don't agree with you. And then there are some podcasts where there really is a discord. There really is conversation and conversations that show perspective, and we learn from, what others are saying. But one thing that people tend to forget about when we're talking about the things that we're passionate about is just taking a moment to just listen. We're so ready to respond and ready to share what we believe and what we think that we're not really hearing other people. And when I say we, you, us, them, please accept it as the universal you. Don't think that I'm just, saying that this is something that we all do, but it is who these things apply to. That's who it refers to. So don't come in my comments and be like, this, that's not true. Everybody don't do that. No one's saying everyone does it. But take my you not as you yourself, but as the universal you. So I am a trained leadership coach, but in that, I've also been an advisor. I've been a counselor for and a coach for artists, that's kind of my niche, coaching artists and management and things like that. So in every role I've played professionally, I've always played like that confident, that coach, that consultant, that person that people go to and say, "Hey, what do you think?" So I've always been observant. I've always listened to people. And now I'm actually trained to listen. And professionally, I listen. And then I ask questions that provoke thought in my clients. And I help them to strategize the steps to take towards building choices in their future endeavors. So this doesn't come from a place of someone that's just jumping online and like, I want to talk about stuff. I am a trained executive coach. I train coach leaders in how to strategize to sustain success in their businesses. I help companies build strategies to become sustainable in their markets. And I help people to really establish what it is that they need for themselves. How are they going to care for themselves in order to be the leader they want to be, in order to facilitate teams that are productive? Okay, so what I'm doing with this show is basically having different conversations that really center around communication. How do we communicate? Why do we communicate? When can we communicate in our, to be most effective? So that's one of the things. But for today, I want to talk about what we can do to care for ourselves. I'm big on different modes to really pull yourself away from the societal chaos that is causing so much deep emotion in a lot of people. And everyone's universal. Everyone's trying to maintain some sense of normalcy in an abnormal society that we're in. So, what do you do when the chaos is swirling around you and you don't know which direction to go in and you just don't know how to proceed? Well, there are many options, but for me and for a lot of people that I coach and a lot of my clients, we pause. So today, this show is basically about pausing, breathing, and strategizing. So first, as I go into my days, I really try to avoid the first thing as I open my eyes to be grabbing my phone. You're grabbing your phone and then you're letting in the chaos first thing in the morning. And if you get up out of your sleep after going to bed with chaos swirling around you, you don't really get that restorative rest. You just don't. A lot of people wonder why they wake up and they're stressed and they feel emotion and they are kind of torn between why am I not getting any rest? And I just slept. What is this? Well, that's because we're inundated with news feeds and reels on Instagram and other platforms and news outlets, CNN or which Fox or whoever you watch. And we're hearing things coming. And rarely do you hear something great, something good, something that's going to make you feel like I have hope in my country. I have hope that tomorrow I'll be better. So right now, you have to be very intentional about caring for yourself. So pause. There is nothing going on in this world that you can't take a moment to pause every day. Because guess what? Whatever's happening is going to be happening. So you take that pause. And you have to take that pause because you have to recenter. You have to recalibrate. You have to ground in yourself and who you are and what you believe and what sustains you before you can even go out into the world to handle the barrage of things that you don't agree with, that you feel are taking away your freedoms, that are making you feel insecure and on top of the stuff you feel on a regular basis. So what I do, and I'll tell you what I do and what I've coached others to do, is find that thing that you value in you, in the world, in those close to you, and take a moment to sit with it. You can, and a lot of times when we do, I don't know if you meditate, but I meditate. So in meditation, you really try to focus on the moment. And many of us are so enveloped in history, our history, not just as ourselves, but in this country. We have a history that we hold with us every day. Can you imagine taking each version of you and carrying it with you into the next day? That's a heavy weight. But imagine if you only had to focus on right now and the weight of yesterday that you can't change goes away, even momentarily. And imagine if you take off the weight of worry for the future that hasn't happened, you don't know what it is, can't even see it, and you just focus on right now. Well, what that does is that allows your mind, heart, spirit, your energy to kind of move into itself so that it's taking care of who you are right now. Your energy is very important. Your heart is very important. Notice some of the somatic responses that come up for you when you feel stressed or when you hear the news. I remember having a conversation with my sister. We were watching CNN or something like that. And night after night, we would watch. And I found myself commenting because even though this podcast isn't about the political, you know, political environment that we're in right now, I have many, many conversations outside of this where I am talking about this, and it is very important to me, and I'm checking in on issues, and I have my own perspective on those. So maybe we'll get into some of that later. But right now, I found myself checking my own somatic responses. And if you know what somatic responses is, it's basically what your the signals that your body gives you that you're reacting to something. And emotion and physical reactions to things, that's data. It's not just people take it as, oh, I'm just feeling that way. Your feelings tell you things. And and people don't really think of it that way all the time. They just think it's a momentary reaction, but that thing is telling you something about you, how you feel in the moment, what's going on in your body, and we don't pay enough attention to it. So in my training, we talk about somatic responses, and with my clients, I'm watching them as I coach them. And I'm looking at them, and if they take a deep breath, or if they, you know, sigh, or if they kind of their posture changes. As a coach, I say, well, can I show you what I'm observing? I'm observing that thing you just said made you sigh really deeply. What was that? What were you feeling in that moment? And sometimes we don't even know how we're reacting to things until someone else observes it and asks us questions about it, which is great. But today, we feel like we're going on autopilot, and sometimes rage is folding into the autopilot mode, and sometimes anger and sadness and despair and hopefulness and hopelessness. All of these different things are happening to us all at one time, not just individually, but as a society. So, what do you do when all of that is swirling around you? My recommendation: pause. Pause. Give yourself some time, not just to stop hearing what is coming at you and seeing what is feels like to us is inevitable the way the country is going right now, but what's happening with you? Because on top of what's happening in the country, you still got your stuff. You still have work. You still have family stuff. You still have personal, deep personal stuff that you may be dealing with. You have love stuff. You have children stuff. You have things that you want to aspire to be. And maybe right now you're feeling like, how am I going to do all of this stuff with the state of the world? Pause. What's important to you right now? What's important to you right now? If you could just shut everything out right now, what's important to you? Pause. You can pause and reflect. You can pause and journal. You can just pause and go for a walk and pay attention to the nature around you. You can listen to some music and just listen to the melody and check how you are responding to it. You might cry, you may bop your head, be like, this is my jam. Ooh, music generates memories. It's a time machine. It transports you to a place in time. Maybe there's a song during a break that you're going to listen to that's going to transport you back to high school or transport you back to a time when you met the love of your life and you felt great, or you know, something that generated joy. Maybe it takes you back to when your child was first born. These memories, pausing allows you to choose how you spend that pause and let it generate some healing for you, right? So I would say pause, first thing. Second, breathe. Yeah, you breathe in every day, all day. But I mean intentional deep breaths that will bring the anxiety down, bring that stress down. It does not take a lot. It just takes a moment. I started doing when I started really getting into my mindfulness practices around like 2016. And I've always been a reflective person. I go and I do what I have to do. And, I'm always kind of watching. I'm always kind of checking things out, observe. I'm a people watcher. I'm observing people, I'm observing situations. And when I became stressed, I was like, let me go start meditating. I would go meditate. Cool. Once I started meditating, I started understanding that my understanding of meditation shifted. When people hear meditation, they kind of go into the spiritual space. Meditation is not about any particular religion. You can be anything, believe anything, and still benefit from meditation. Because meditation, I started calling it mindful pauses because when you use the word meditation, that meditation has some connotation to it that some people shy away from. But when I say mindful pause, it's just like, let's just be very aware of the moment. So I started doing that, but in my mindful pauses, I knew that breathing was a really big part of it because it kept me focused. And if you ever have a guided meditation and you're a beginner, they'll tell you, find something to focus on. And breathing is usually the thing that they may recommend in that moment. Well, I found that doing the deep breaths would help me to calm myself and really focus because there is a thing in meditation called the monkey mind, where they basically is all of your thoughts bouncing all over the place. They're bouncing all over the place. So as I'm breathing, I'm able to acknowledge the thoughts. And that's one misconception that is about meditation that people will say, clear your mind, clear your mind. And, as if that's possible. But what it is you're not clearing your mind. You're focusing and compartmentalizing everything else. So if you find yourself taking a pause, and a lot of people say they can't meditate because they're just so much on their mind. What it is, they're trying so much to quiet their mind that they're trying to make themselves ignore those thoughts that are bouncing around, jumping around like little monkeys in their mind, and they're frustrated because they can't do it. I can't shut them thoughts off. So instead of trying to shut them off, acknowledge them. You basically are like, I'm focusing on this breath. I hear you all. I hear you. I know you're there. But just let me do this and I'll get to you all later. So let me have this moment. You know, so what it does is allow you that time to really breathe. And we have to be very, and I'm not saying everybody should meditate. I'm just saying take the moment to breathe. And when you're trying to take that moment for yourself and thoughts keep getting in the way, don't try to shut them out forcefully. Just say, I really, really need to focus on my breathing right now. I know that these thoughts are here, but I'll get to y'all after I breathe, you know? So take that time. Go on. Like I say, I love the idea of meditating as you walk or as you do something. And a lot of times my meditation is just listening to music and focusing on a song or focusing on the melodies or focusing on the rhythm. And that is what helps me really center and feel the gravity, feeling the seat that I'm sitting on, feeling the ground under my feet, and things like that. It really brings you back to yourself. And then sometimes it brings you back to your purpose. It brings you closer to your creator, um, if you believe. And it brings you to a space where you can find a little bit of clarity in the moment. You don't have to try to fix everything right now. So much is going on in society that you can't fix everything right now. There's so much going on in your life that you can't fix everything right now. So being able to be in the moment is a gift, the present. So with that, I say take time to breathe, make that a part of your daily life because I'll tell you what happened to me in my meditating, in my focusing, and I do a lot of things. I'll read. My morning routine is getting up, meditating, journaling, and then I read from, for me, I read from the Jesuit Book of Days, which is a Jesuit. If you don't know what the Jesuits are, they're a Catholic Society of Jesus Order that are Catholic uh, priests. And my alma mater, Georgetown University, is a Jesuit university. So when I was having a really, really hard time dealing with depression, and someone handed me that book, and it is basically talking about the spiritual exercises that the Jesuits have. And each day it goes through a passage, and it may be a little scripture in there as well, but it goes through a passage and it kind of gives you reflective questions at the end. So my routine is meditation, book of days, journaling, and then I'll read from another book that, just information coaching or something like that. But um, I found myself really focusing on my breathing because I realized that I had gotten to a point where I felt like I couldn't breathe and I was panicking and I was dealing with anxiety. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But the meditation and the reading and the journaling helped me kind of, again, feel the gravity, feel the ground under my feet, feel the seat that I'm on, and feel myself actually start to relax more into myself. So, in doing so, I was able to develop a natural, isn't we breathe naturally involuntarily, we just breathe. But when you intentionally breathe, you're mindful of what's happening to your body when the air is coming in, when it's going out, what's happening in the pause between the inhale and exhale. You're actually focused on those things. So it brings you to a really interesting space inside of yourself. This is what we need right now. We need to get in touch with ourselves and not just our anger, not just our sadness, not just our, anticipation for the worst to happen or, getting ready to fight, which that's another podcast. But this is how you communicate with yourself. And I believe in all kinds of communication, verbal, nonverbal, um, all the different things to help you find clarity. Communication, clear communication is what makes how we relate to each other effective. That also applies to you. So, in finding those ways to breathe, you start to develop the habit of intentional breathing. So then when you're in stressful situations, you almost find yourself drawing on those techniques without even knowing. I remember I was in a meeting when I was doing my work at Georgetown, and one of the execs in the office, and I'm having a meeting with one of the directors. And before we sat down, as I sat into the chair, I inhaled and I went like, and she said, "Is that one of your mindful breaths?" And I just started laughing. I was like, "Yeah." And what happened was she was like, "Yeah, you do that a lot." Okay, I do that for two reasons. One, I did my mindful breath because I just wanted to make sure that I was in a calm state before going into the meetings. Then, number two, I took a mindful breath because I knew I was about to walk into some bullshit most of the time. So I was like, anticipate it coming, calm yourself. You're okay. This meeting is only an hour. You can make it through the hour. So, and that helped me so much. So, being intentional about your breath is not just something that helps you cope with any anxiety or stress or depression and things like that, but it helps you kind of regulate your emotions and your state of mind on a regular basis in your meetings and things like that. So, breathe, take time to breathe. It really, really matters and it really makes a difference. So, the third, how many fingers? Third thing is strategize. A lot of people are tail spinning right now. People are losing work, are losing jobs. People are stressing about we don't know what's going to happen to us. Some people are in their jobs and like I don't know if I'm going to have it for long. Well, now is the time to strategize. Don't panic. It's easy to panic, and they want us to panic because when you're panicking, you're not focused. You're not planning. You're not, you know, being very mindful and intentional about your movements. Strategizing. Creating strategies, basically creating choices for yourself that's going to help you survive the next phase or help you succeed in the next phase. It gives you options of different ways to be okay, to be your best, to thrive, to elevate. So you always have options. I tell everybody this all the time. When people say, "Oh, I had no choice," you always have a choice. Some of the choices you may not like, but you always have a choice. Never believe that you never have a choice. But what I do is I help people create strategies around what it is they want for themselves, whether it's personally or for their businesses. What is it that you want to do? How might you get to your goal? What would have to be true for those things to come to fruition? What are your options? What are your resources? What will you need to be okay? Who in your sphere can you partner with to be accountable to one another? How will you know when you are successful at what it is you're seeking to do or seeking to be? You can sit, I tell people all the time, find those who are on the same path with you and see if you can account for one another. But even more than that, get together with some people who don't necessarily view the world like you do. Exchange ideas. We're not talking about proven rightness, which goes back to what this podcast is about. This podcast is about understanding, not about proven rightness. So in the future, you'll hear us have dialogue with other people sharing their perspectives. But it's not about, I'm going to debunk what you believe. It's going to say, okay, I hear what you're saying. This is how I see it. And what that does is it helps us to understand the other person better, not just view them as being right or wrong. I may not agree with you. I mean, even after hearing your perspective, I still may not agree with you, but I understand why you think the way you do. And as long as you respect my perspective, you don't have a problem. I may not side with you on anything, but that shouldn't impact me in any other way other than just knowing that people think differently than me. But when you're building strategies, you really have to ask certain questions of yourself and get others who have varied perspectives that can come together with you and um, shed light on some areas that you may not be actually seeing through your lens. So, in the professional world, we'd have a design thinking sessions or strategy building sessions. You're usually pulling people who are not in, if you're in a company and you have different departments, if you have everyone in your department that's doing this work every day and they're so focused on it and they're inside of the work, they're seeing things from how they've been moving every day. I think we should do this. I think we should do that. That's not a problem at all. But imagine if you got other stakeholders that are not always in your space coming in to look at things from an outside perspective and say, have y'all considered this? As a user, as a, another one of the other stockholders, this is our part in it, but what if we did this together? So what you do is you start building foundations to create better strategies. In this space that we're in right now, a lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are anticipating a lot of struggle. I've noticed where I live, there are people who are starting to share resources. Food is crazy high right now. And for over a year and a half, almost 2 years, people have been talking about how much eggs are. Well, there are people buying. My neighbor just bought chickens, and we're building gardens, and we're like, "What do you need?" Well, what do you need? Well, I have eggs. I got tomatoes. And those are kind of the resources. You go to the big box stores. I'm going to get so and so cases of water. Do you need some? Oh yeah, I just got this. What is the community doing to pull each other together? So in your own life, you can strategize how you're going to make it through this tough time with as little, there will be stress, but as little stress as possible. So in doing that, write down, take notes, write down what you want. Ask yourself, what do I need to get here? What resources do I need? What resources do I have? What are my three best options? So, what are you looking at? This is from my design thinking background and business strategy building. What do you have? What is? What if? When you go into what if, you're basically saying, what is the wildest idea I can do? The best thing I can imagine for myself if I had no restrictions, if I had no barriers. What can I build? And then out of those things, you really start to look at what's the most feasible, what's the most realistic, what can I do? And from those things, you start to build strategy. I want to do this thing. Let me find different ways and different avenues to make this one thing happen. You don't have to do too much. Pick one thing. I want to be secure. I want to be safe. I want to make sure I have income. I want to make sure I have a support network. I'm going to make sure that I'm continuing to grow professionally. I want to make sure that I am growing as a person emotionally. I want to make sure that I am handling the emotional stresses with as much compassion and love for myself as I can. And that whoever I'm building boundaries. I want to make sure that the people around me understand my boundaries and expectations. So you start building strategies around that. What is my plan to make those things come to fruition? And you can build many different strategies. And also ask yourself, what am I risking if I don't do that? What are my barriers? Do your SWOT analysis. Do those analysis that are going to help you get a clearer picture for what you want for yourself. So don't feel like you don't have any tools. Don't feel like you don't have any resources to bring yourself a little more ease during this time because honestly, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to evoke that kind of spark that's going to cause us to actually get out of our comfort zones and act to fight for our democracy. While we're where we are right now, we're still fighting, but a lot of people are still waiting and watching and observing, and people are talking so much right now that some people are missing the fact that the fight that we're going to have, and I'm not saying physical fight, but we don't know what's going to happen. So be mindful. And before anything erupts in the world, just give yourself some peace, as much peace as often as you can to get you where you want to be, a place of internal safety. A lot of people don't feel safe. A lot of people don't feel, can I say normal? Normalcy feels like it doesn't exist anymore. It's up to interpretation, subjective. But I wish for you all the best, and I hope that you'll come back because I have some very exciting things coming up and with Prudes that apply. And don't forget, pause, breathe, and strategize. And you can email me at pnnapodcast@gmail.com if you have any questions about how do I strategize, next steps, how do I become, how can I develop a pause, breathe, strategize routine? What will it do for me? Don't forget, I'm a coach. I can help. But this will be it for this episode. But let me tell you about some stuff that we got coming up. Pause, breathe, strategize was my first episode on YouTube. Yay! But I do have episode coming up, and I have to talk to her. Author Jerron Russell, writer, author of The Professional People Pleaser. Beautiful, easy to read book that is just so insightful of how we become people pleasers and how can we care enough for ourselves to create the boundaries so that we don't fall into the trap of being a professional people pleaser. Also, we'll have other episodes that are going to come up talking about how to, we deal with family, communicate with family when we're going through a rocky time with them. I'll share my own stories too. So, anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, and just stay tuned. Hit like, subscribe, share. Let people know we're here, and I'll see you next time. All right. Thank you so much. This is Coach True, and I love you, and I appreciate you. Thanks.
Thanks for joining me. This is True and stay true.